We have a Fender Hot Rod DeVille to take a look at today. I know it says Fender DeVille on the label on the front, but it's a Hot Rod DeVille. So the owner of this amplifier says that it's sound is coming on and off, and there's popping noises, which could be quite a few different things. But anyway, we're going to take a look at it. I think the year is, somewhere around 2000. The PC board, and it's got a label on of 2001. I can't find the quality assurance sticker that usually has a 2-letter date code, and I just can't find one in this amp anywhere. But the exact date is not that critical. It's, after 96 is when they started making these. They've changed them slightly over the years, but we don't really need to know all those details, because we're looking for probably a bad tube or maybe a bad capacitor or something like that. So I'm going to get the upper back taken off of this, and we can have a look inside. So as you can see, it's a hybrid, what I call a hybrid anyway. It's a mix between, it's a tube amp, but a lot of stuff is on PC board. And most amplifier manufacturers turn to that instead of point-to-point wiring. It's just way more efficient, and they keep the price of the amplifiers down. And for the most part, those PC boards are okay unless you've got output tubes that are mounted directly to the PC board. Sometimes that can be a real problem. But these tubes are very well supported. Before I power this thing up, I'm going to take a look at the fuse. Make sure it isn't a fuse that's way oversized. And then when I do power it up, I'll have it on my current limiter. And if everything checks out okay, I'll take it off the limiter and do a little testing to see what kind of bias we're getting out of those output tubes. So I've got my meters hooked up, and the way I test is by testing the plate current directly. This amp does provide you with a test point, but it's off the cathode and a 1 ohm resistor. And while that does work, it combines the screen and the plate current. So if you don't know what the screen current is, you're not getting a really accurate plate current. So I always test this way. Those little probes, you call them, you put in between the tube and the tube socket, gives you a direct line to go straight into your multimeter and set it for 200 milliamps, and you'll get the readings. Now on this one, you can see that tube on the right just jumping around quite a bit, which isn't good, and the one on the left is really low. So I think it finally settles down to about 28 milliamps on that tube on the right, and the left one is about 7. So I think we have a problem with one of those tubes, and maybe both of them. So I'm going to go ahead and find out what my plate voltage is. And it looks like it's around 460, which is pretty high. That 6L6 GCs can handle that with no problem. And we're going to get into that a little bit here in a minute, because we got an issue there. In the meantime, I'm going to pull these tubes out and put them on the tube checker and see what we're looking at. Find out about that weak tube. So this is the tube tester I use, the B&K Dynaquick. It's a model 650. So the first tube I'm going to put in there is going to be the one that seemed to be operating okay. At least it was showed a fair amount of plate current. So I'll flip the switch on and let the filament warm up a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and put it in the test 1 position. The first position you see on that lever on the left near the meter, right now it's testing for grid emissions. So you can see I put it in the test position, and immediately checks out that the tube is fine. There's no issues with that tube. So now we're going to test that tube that was very weak, and we'll see what we get there. So right away, I'm going to turn the switch on, and I'm testing for emissions, grid emissions, and it already shows that it's got a problem. It shouldn't show that. I'm going to go ahead and do a regular test on it anyway, but it failed the emissions test. And you can see right away it doesn't react at all like the other tube. So it just kind of creeps along here in the replace area, and there's no point in going any further with this tube because it failed the emissions test. So we're just going to stop the test here. So we do have one bad tube, but that's not the only issue we have with those tubes. Those are not 6L6 GCs. Those are 5881s. And it's not an exact replacement for the 6L6 GC. That would be a 6L6 GB or a 6L6. So I explained all this to my customer, and he owns a music store. In fact, he's my customer. The real owner of this amp, I don't know who it is. Anyway, he stopped by and brought me these two packages that he found, which are old PV 6L6 GCs, and we're going to give those a try. So I put a couple of those tubes in there, those rubies. Now we're going to do a bias test. And right away you can see the tube on the left is pretty stable, around 30 to 31. The one on the right is jumping around. I'm not going to show the range of how far it's jumping around, but it's going everywhere from about 30 up to 55. And that just doesn't work. And there's something wrong with that tube, or something wrong with the socket, or something wrong with the something else in the amp. So we got to stop here. It doesn't come through on the video, but there was a lot of interference and coming through the speakers and some popping. So I swapped that tube out for one of the other ones, and you can see here that it's relatively stable. So all I did was swap the tube. I thought that would be the first thing to try instead of digging into the circuit, and that appears to be what the problem was. That tube just was there was something wrong with it. So I'm going to go ahead and get a plate voltage so we can calculate the dissipation. If you don't know, you take the plate current in amps, not milliamps, in amps, and you multiply it times the plate voltage, and that gives you the plate dissipation in watts. I'm also going to do an output test to see what kind of wattage we're getting out. And you watch the sine wave kind of flatten off, and we're getting probably 19.2, maybe 19.6. We'll call it 19.6. So I'll take a quick check here again, and we're getting about 29 milliamps on one and about 30, say 32, 33 on the other one. I use the higher one for calculating the bias. So we're going to do a little bias calculation. So we got our voltage, plate voltage was 460, and I kind of screwed this up. I plugged in 0.031, and it should have been 0.033, which is a little over 15 watts, not 14.2. So then we're going to check out the output. So we had our voltage to the speaker, which is 19.6. You square that, and then you divide by your resistance, which is 8 ohms, which gives me 48 watts to the speakers. Now the 6L6s I have put out a little bit more. They put out 55 watts, and this amp is rated at 60 watts, which I don't believe. You can get 60 watts, particularly if you go ultra-linear, but that's not the way this amp is set up. So anyway, we're good there. 48 watts is plenty. I wanted to show you this on the tube chart. I'm using my close-up camera, which happens to be my phone. Those actually work really good for close-up. So we'll go up onto the tube chart, and you'll see that it says 6L6GC/5881. Now, I'm not so sure that's a good idea to put that on there, but, who am I? That's the great, venerable Fender, and I'm just some dumbass in Long Beach fixing amplifiers. The 6L6GC is rated at 30 watts of plate dissipation. The 5881 is 23, which is a significant enough difference that you'd probably want to rebias if you're going to use those tubes. But the big problem is the plate voltage. 5881s will handle 400 volts, 6L6GC 500. The plate voltage in this amp is 460 volts. So you're asking for trouble. Even though the 5881 is a fairly robust tube, you're asking, unless there's something unique about the sound of those that you just have to have, you're asking for trouble just sticking a pair of those in there. And it may very well be why those first tubes I pulled out, one of them was just fried. It burned the label off the tube. It had gotten so hot, and ruined the tube. So that'll do it for this one. And if you think I'm full of shit about the 5881s, then beat me up in the comments, and thanks for watching.